Oh, hello. I wanted to talk to you about love and marriage. Remember that show, Married with Children? I don't want to offend people, but I probably will. That's when TV really became trashy, when Fox started producing sitcoms. TV became really super trashy. It did. But I liked In Living Color and I liked the Tracy Ullman show. So it just goes to show that I'm a bit of a hypocrite. You know, the Al Bundy character just funny, but sleazy, and it really downgraded our culture. Don't think that media doesn't have an effect on society, because it does. Because America was, and I think still is, even with the influx of immigrants, a largely Judeo-Christian based nation. No offense if you're not from the Judeo-Christian background, but we have values values which emanate from the Judeo-Christian tradition that many people find desirable, even if they're not a Jew or a Christian themselves. Right? I have to keep this message short. I really don't want to take 2 hours, and I can't take 2 hours today and talk about this. Goodness, I mean, society has really, really gone downhill. I mean, I've seen it in my lifetime. I've seen it, you know. Um, I don't want to pick on Joan Jett and Madonna, but I'm going to. Do you think that Joan Jett was really a good example for little girls? She really was a role model, and then Madonna comes along. Joan Jett is pretty hardcore, you know what I'm saying? Oh, years later, it turns out she's actually a lesbian. Oh, really? Who knew? And back in the day, nobody perceived her as being a lesbian or anything like that. She was just like this tough rock and roll chick. I Love Rock and Roll was like the number one song. You heard it everywhere you went. We didn't have the internet. We had television. We had radio, okay? They'd be playing it in restaurants. Kids would bring their boom boxes on the school bus, and you'd hear Joan Jett. Because, I lived in a white area. If I lived in a black area, they would have been playing different things on the boombox. Okay. All right. We'll just put Madonna aside. We could say things, but we're not going to. That's enough. We're just going to leave her alone now. All right. You can't blame Madonna for everything. What about when I'm in the 6th grade? Yeah, after my parents' divorce, and Michael Jackson comes out, and he looks so feminine. He's wearing makeup. And he continued to have plastic surgery over the years, and he talks in this high-pitched feminine voice. He was such a phenomenon, but how was he a role model? You know what I'm saying? And I'm sorry, may he rest in peace. I'm not saying, boy, was Thriller, you thought Joan Jett was popular. My goodness, I bought this Michael Jackson sweatshirt, and I had a sparkly glove. I remember running into one of my schoolmates. My parents had taken me to this Chinese restaurant. I think it was in Worcester, Ohio. And one of my schoolmates was there, and I was wearing my Michael Jackson sweatshirt, and I had my sparkly glove, and I just waved to her. She probably thought I was a weirdo. Like, I was a fan of Michael Jackson, and yet what is this person? They're androgynous. They're, you know what I'm saying, folks? I don't mean to be mean. I mean, supposedly he had vitiligo, and oh yes, he had vitiligo. Yeah, but his skin just kept getting lighter and lighter. His lips and his nose got smaller and smaller until he started to not really look human. He started to look like an action figure, or a doll, or something. I mean, I'm just trying to be honest, folks. And I'm so sorry if I'm hurting anybody's feelings. That's not my intention. But again, we're talking about Married with Children. Many people I've heard over the decades, they say, "Oh, I'm never getting married." It's like, and so I think to myself, well, that means you're just going to be a fornicator then, right? Well, what's fornication? Duh. What is, people don't take it seriously. I didn't even know it was wrong to have sex before marriage when I was attending the Catholic Church as a little girl. I thought, to my little self, how one thinks when one is a child, one has a little simple mind. Things are not discussed. You're just learning things, you're picking up things from the culture. Well, it's bad for a girl to have sex before she's married, but it's okay for a guy to do it. If a guy doesn't have sex before he's married, he's just kind of like a wimp. A guy shouldn't be a virgin until he's married. I was picking that up from the culture. Nobody told me that. I was thinking that in my little simple childlike mind. We have such a distorted presentation of human sexuality. Well, it's just for fun, Like Living Single. I used to watch Living Single. Why? You're not even black. I know, but I just like the song. We are living single. Yeah. Like this is not reality, folks. This is before reality shows, but they're presenting this as like it's okay for people to just hang out and fornicate and, they can hook up, but they don't have to be committed and all that kind of stuff. Like we're receiving moral instruction through our entertainment. And I don't even want to start with the rap music when it got really violent and sexual and mean. You know what I'm saying? I think as a nation we really need to repent. A lot of people don't like Americans. A lot of people don't like America, including our own fellow Americans don't even like America. There's a lot of anti-American sentiment that we received through movies. And there was some sort of a substitute patriotism with, like, the Rambo movies. I'm sorry, not putting down Sylvester Stallone. We'll leave Arnold Schwarzenegger alone because he's a foreigner anyway. But he was the governor of California. Started out being conservative, kind of like, yeah. They handled him pretty handily. He didn't leave as a conservative. He went in as a conservative. He left not a conservative. Yeah, that's what California dreaming will do for you, bro. Yeah, but these Rambo movies, this violence that we had in the 1980s, like, oh, she's against violence, she's a liberal. I'm a Christian, I'm a woman, and I don't like gratuitous violence. Excuse me. Yeah, violence is sometimes necessary, but it's never something to enjoy, right? Or celebrate. To be fair, my dad was not a fan of Rambo. Like, Rambo was ridiculous. He was just so stupid and ridiculous. My dad was more old school, but he liked war movies. He really enjoyed them. But war movies had a plot. They had a context. World War II movies. Rambo was just gratuitous violence in the jungle with machine guns. Really. And yet that was presented to young men as, this is manhood. Having a bunch of bullets and just shooting people. Da, 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 da. Yeah. And I watched the A-Team, and I love the A-Team, so I am such a big hypocrite. My mother and I used to watch the A-Team when my dad was working, a couple hours away, which he had to commute every week. Those were nice times, watching the A-Team with my mom. And then Dad retired, and it's like, oh, good times are over, because when Dad comes back, Mom retreats into her room, with her beers. Because we know what's going to hit the fan pretty soon. There's going to be a couple of hysterical blow-ups every day over little tiny innocuous things. That's my dad. And so I understand why she divorced him originally, and then she did remarry him. I understand, but the circumstances, how it happened, that was the wrong thing. I'm not even saying that it was wrong for her to divorce him. because he was a very difficult, disturbed person and impossible to live with, really. It's true. Forgive me if I've said anything wrong, Lord. But when there are children involved, that's a horse of a different color. My mother became so focused on herself. Dad was away for the entire week anyway. What was so necessary for you to divorce him just because he was difficult on the weekends? You know? I lost my best friend. I lost so much. I ended up in a school district where people were very mean and poor white trash. Even if they had money, they acted poor white trash. I'm sorry. It's true. And it was just a very devastating, horrible downgrade for me. Yeah. It's not the fact that I lived in a trailer park. You can have nice trailer parks. My grandparents lived in a very nice trailer park after they retired. Well, no, not my grandparents. Actually, my great-uncle. I made a mistake there. My parents inherited that. And that was nice. So many bad influences in the culture. I thought I was going to talk about love and marriage, but I want to talk about gambling, how it's infected the senior citizenry. They had a gambling boat because gambling they had pretty strict rules back then when my parents moved down to Del Boca Vista. Actually, it wasn't called that, but the old people would have to get on this boat. They'd have to get out into international waters in order for the gambling to happen. Well, one time the boat sank and a lot of old people died. My dad talked about that a lot, but that doesn't stop my parents from going on the gambling boat. And then when they brought gambling to Ohio, why leave Ohio, There's gambling. Oh my goodness gracious. I hate gambling. I hate it. I hate it. If you're a young person, please don't get into sports betting and crap like that. Please just leave it alone. I know, you might have to be the only one in your peer group or in your family that doesn't gamble, that doesn't place bets. Well, you can place bets on anything. It's called kashi. That's an Arabic word, by the way. I thought you were anti-Islamic. Now you're placing bets. How many Jews will die today in Jerusalem, How many suicide, what kind of weirdos are you? What the heck is going on with you? Okay, so the circumstances under which the divorce occurred, that's the problem. There was an adulterous affair with a man who was married and was a fellow educator, and he had 3 very nice children. I met them, I hung out with them a little bit. I even met the wife. Did the wife know what was going on? Did they have an open marriage? Well, I want to tell you, his marriage never dissolved, but my parents' marriage dissolved. This guy really took advantage of her. He used her. What a horrible Lothario. You stand out as Mephistopheles in my mind. Your black eyes and your black eyebrows and your black hair. You look like Mephistopheles to me. I didn't know even as a little girl that's what he was, but he was. He was like the devil in disguise. Not disguising it very well, actually. By their fruits you shall know them. And of course he came from New York. And you know what? I'm sorry, yeah, he's a white guy. Did I offend you? I think he was Scottish or something. You know what he reminds me of? That guy that did Idiocracy. He kind of looked like him. So don't think I'm being a racist. The guy was Scottish. Walsh is Scottish, right? Okay. Scots-Irish. Well, this guy was, I believe, Scots-Irish, but eyes as black as coal, hair as black as coal, eyebrows as black as coal. What a horrible, satanic human being you were to do that to my mother and to do that to me. You corrupter. Well, hopefully he repented. He might be dead now. I don't know. Do I look people up? I don't do it. I don't want to look myself up. Mercy. Thank you, Jesus, for protecting my reputation. But the thing was, having an adulterous affair, you're lonely, you're sad, and you're surrounded by peers that say, yeah, you should just go for the affair. Fellow educators were telling her, you go ahead, you screw around on your husband, you have a right to do that. You don't know how it affected the child. You know what I'm saying? The child. My mother was a Catholic. She stopped going to Catholic church altogether. I had to catch a church bus to a Nazarene church when I lived in the trailer park. Because my mom just stopped going to church altogether. It's like, and she got breast cancer and lost one of her breasts after that divorce. What did she think was going to happen? That we were all going to move in together and be some sort of like a hippie family or something? Maybe that's what she thought. But the wife was not having any of that. The wife was probably like, okay, you've had your fun, Donny boy. Now it's time to straighten up and fly right. I'm not putting up with this, woman hanging out with us and her untidy daughter and her little newborn baby. I know the baby was my dad's anyway, so because he looked very Aryan, he had blue eyes and blonde hair, so it wasn't Mephistopheles' baby. But I'm telling you, there are some people out there, you might be in a workplace situation where you're being tempted. Rather than leave the spouse, maybe it's better to leave the workplace, not the spouse. Because we can already see the handwriting on the wall. There's time to get the magic eraser, I think. You have this window of opportunity. Take advantage. Adios.